I returned my car because I just could not afford it anymore. And this particular car was a BMW 420i Coupe, which was a 2015 or 2016 model. And to be honest with you, from the beginning, when I bought this particular car, I could afford it. The income or my salary made sense at that particular time. My life, it made sense at that time. Everything felt stable for me to have this dream car at that time. I wasn't really struggling. I wasn't in any pressure. It actually felt like things were just working. But obviously, life doesn't stay the same. Things change as we grow older. And sometimes they change in ways that you don't immediately adjust to. So I eventually had a child a couple of months later after buying the car. And when that happened, everything in my life shifted. Not just only emotionally, but also practically. Because now your priorities, they begin to change. Now, even how you decide or make decisions, it changes. So even the way you think about money sometimes, it also changes after having a child, because now you are not only just thinking about yourself anymore, you are thinking about stability, you are thinking about the environment, you are thinking about the kind of life that you are building for yourself and even for your child. So I moved from an apartment into a space that made more sense for having a child, which was a standalone house. But that decision came with financial pressure, which meant a bigger bond repayment. It meant more responsibilities. It meant having to now have a helper. It meant now having to put a child in crash, more food that you need to be buying. You're spending even more maybe on transport. So everything started adding up slowly but consistently. And here is what I started noticing very clearly during that time. My income has stayed the same, but my life had expanded. And I think a lot of people that are living are like that right now. Your salary doesn't change, but your responsibilities have changed already. So you find that your expenses, they increase while your income stays exactly where it is, or even where it was 2 years or 3 years ago. So at first, the first instinct is to try to manage it, and then you adjust, and then you cut back where you can. You try to just make it work. You tell yourself that it will balance out. But over time, pressure starts building. And I didn't make the decision immediately. I did actually try to hold on for a while, hoping for things to change. So I kept thinking that maybe I just need to adjust better. Maybe things are going to eventually settle. Maybe I just need to be more careful. But the pressure, sadly, it didn't go away, but it actually increased. And I was also still paying around 8,000 rand every month for this particular car. And I can remember sitting with that pressure, thinking to myself, how am I going to keep up with all of this? I need a miracle, because nothing about my income was changing. There was no promotion. There was no significant salary increase. It was just the same income trying to carry a life that had already grown bigger. And eventually, I had to make the tough decision that many people are not brave to make. So I returned the car, not because I wanted to, but because I felt like I had no other option at that particular point. And I'm not going to lie, that decision came with emotion because it wasn't just a car. You know, a car represents progress in life. A car represented something that you have worked for. It represents a version of life I thought that I was building. And letting it go didn't feel simple. It felt like a loss. It felt like I was not progressing. And I even remember moments where I thought, I just wish maybe something could happen to this car so the insurance would pay out so I don't have to carry this pressure anymore. And it's not because I was giving up. No, it's not because of that, but because I was tired of carrying this financial weight. So eventually I had to let the car go. So I sold it, but at a huge loss. So I told myself that I just need peace right now. But looking back today, I understand something that I didn't understand at that time. I didn't understand that I didn't just have a money problem. I had an options problem because my thinking at that time was very, very limited. So if I need more money, it meant that I needed to get a promotion. If I need more money, it means I need to get a better job. Or if I need more money, it means I need someone else to decide that for me. So that was my mindset. And because of that particular mindset, I was always thinking in reduction. How do I cut costs? How do I survive this month? That is how I was thinking. How do I make it work with what I currently have? But I wasn't really thinking about, I wasn't thinking expansion. And here is something I've realized since then. So life has different stages. And when your life expands, your income structure matters more than your effort because your effort or effort without structure eventually hits a ceiling. And that is where many people get stuck. It's not because they are lazy, it's not because they are not trying, but it's because their income is only coming from one direction. And when that one direction is under pressure, everything else just begins to feel heavy. But here is the shift. The moment you are exposed to more options, your thinking starts to change because now you don't only think in survival mode. Now you begin to think expansion. So now you start asking different questions. You don't only ask yourself, how do I survive this particular month? But now you begin to also ask yourself, how do I build something alongside my job? How do I create another stream of income? How do I reduce my dependence on just one source? And even small wins, they start to matter. Even if you make 10 Rand or $1, or you make 100 Rand, $10, or $100, 1,000 Rand, you become very excited. And it's not even because of the amount, it's because of what it represents. Because it represents this realization that I can influence my income. I can make money outside my traditional job. And that is something that I did not understand at that particular time when I returned my car because I had only one stream of income, which was my job, and that was it. And when you have only one stream of income, everything else feels like pressure, because every expense that you get or you have depends only on one source. But when your options increase, now your mindset shifts from survival into expansion. And that is where things now begin to shift. And for me personally, one of the things that opened up my mind was realizing that income doesn't only come from one place. There are people building through digital skills, through online platforms. People are building through content creation, through services that they are offering. People are building through knowledge based work, through systems that allow you to build something alongside your job, because we've been trained that income only comes from a job. So, not because everyone must do the same thing, no, not because of that, but because it shows you something that is important, that life has options. There are options to making a living, making income, and most people are not stuck. They are just unaware of their options. And that was the biggest shift for me at that particular time. So now, before I continue, so if you want to understand this season of my life in detail, the actual numbers, so it can make better sense for you, the pressure that I was under and how everything else looked in reality, I've made a separate video where I break it down, because I love to be practical and I love to be transparent. So you can find the video in the description below after this video. But coming back to what I was talking about, so the biggest realization I had was that I was not stuck. I was just unaware of what was actually possible. And that is what changed everything else for me. Because once I started learning about the different ways that people are building income today, my thinking began to expand. And one of the things that helped me personally was understanding platforms like this, platforms like YouTube, platforms like your Amazon, and other online systems where people are building income in different ways. Not because you must do what I do, don't do, not because of that, but because it shows you something very important. There are more options than you think. There are more options on things that you can be starting today. And I want to say this clearly to you. If you are watching this right now and you feel that pressure, I understand it. I've lived through that pressure. And I want you to hear this now without confusion. You are not lazy. You are not behind. You are not broken. You may just not have been shown enough options yet. And that is why I created something. I created a blueprint, something I genuinely wish I had when I was in that particular season, which is a simple breakdown of ways people are building income today and how I've also built my income, so that you don't think in only one direction. And it is in the description below if you want to take a look at it. Because sometimes the breakthrough is not in working harder, it is in seeing differently. And once you see differently, everything else starts to change.